The Central African Republic is a country in almost constant crisis. Decades of political instability, military conflict, and ongoing skirmishes with rebels have rendered it one of the world's poorest and least developed nations. All this has left the country's health sector in tatters. Facilities are poor, there aren't enough trained staff, and even for them, wages often don't come on time, sapping morale and motivation. The result is that there are many deaths that could have been avoided. Average life expectancy here is just 47 years. One of the most vulnerable groups is pregnant women. Therese Zeba of the UN Population Fund says far too many mothers are dying in childbirth.
It is almost 4 to 5 women dying every day in Central African Republic. And this is too much.
One of the reasons for so many maternal deaths in a country with just 4.5 million people is that nearly half of all deliveries take place at home, without a doctor or trained midwife. The government is trying to encourage more women to give birth in hospital, but there's a fee that many people simply can't afford. 17-year-old Shipra Perrier did give birth to baby Japhet in hospital, but only just. She says that when the labor pains hit, she had to wait at home while her mother pleaded with relatives and friends to gather enough money to cover the hospital fees.
When the contractions started, I had to endure the pain for 3 days as we did not have the money to go to the hospital. In the meantime, I was praying to God to give me the strength to continue to endure it until my mother collected the required amount of money.
Once the money was in hand, Shipra was rushed to the public hospital in the capital, Bangui, where luckily she gave birth without complications. But even though there are rudimentary facilities here, the head of the National Midwives Association says they need much more.
Here in the urban areas, in the case of our local maternity ward, we have a lot of hemorrhages and we don't have a blood bank nearby. Having to leave the local hospital to go all the way to the general hospital is a problem. We need a blood collection centre nearby to save women who are hemorrhaging.
Even if they do get more staff and equipment, the cost issue remains a major hurdle. The UN Population Fund is trying to mitigate the problem by providing birth kits with gloves, soap, and other items that are needed for a delivery. But the agency's top official here is frustrated that other costs, no matter how small, are still too much for families to pay.
Women are dying for peanuts, you see, nothing really important. Perhaps she died just only because the family don't have 5,000 to put airtime in the telephone and call the doctor. So it is really unacceptable. And as a woman, a mother, a sister, I think we need to do something.
Henrietta Sunba is another 17-year-old who has just given birth to her first child. She's an orphan whose parents died of what the family calls a sickness several years ago. She now lives with her grandparents in this cramped 2-room house. Andre Pamanda says they had to scrimp and save to get enough to pay for their granddaughter's prenatal care at a local health center, plus medication, and the cost of the hospital delivery. Altogether, he says it cost 65,000 Central African francs, or about $140 US, a huge sum for people here.
It's so difficult. You know, me, who's here in front of you, I'm retired. It's a little difficult. It's costing us a lot of money. With the help of the relatives and with the help of the little sister, we are trying to collect something to face this problem. It's quite a challenge. It's not easy.
Despite the financial strain, Henrietta did receive care from qualified staff. But many others aren't as lucky, either because they can't afford it, or if they live in remote areas, there simply aren't enough trained staff and facilities. This in a country with only 6 obstetricians, all of whom are in the capital. In rural areas, a birth attendant with little or no training is often the best option for a woman in labor. But if there are complications, the birth often ends in tragedy. More trained midwives would help, but many aren't willing to go because it's too dangerous and conditions are so poor.
In the rural areas, we need midwives, but the real problem that we have is the care of the midwives who go into the provinces. The distance travelled and the lack of security are issues.
The government is well aware of the problems and is attempting to train more doctors and nurses and assign them to rural areas. If that is achieved, the next challenge will be persuading them to stay. Gary Stryker, Global Health Frontline News.